The third chapter of Genesis is perhaps one of the best-known stories from the Hebrew Bible. Many people refer to it as the Garden of Eden, or the fall of humanity, or even the story about original sin. Many people believe that Satan is represented in this story as well. But what the story itself actually says surprises most of my students once they read it for themselves with an open mind. There is no mention of sin or Satan, and the story itself is grappling with human conscience, an element of human existence that is, to be sure, vexing at times, but ultimately a rather lovely part of who we are. It is also simply giving a backstory to a handful of realities that likely perplexed the ancient Hebrew people. Namely, why do we have to contend with these pesky snakes? Why do women have so much pain in childbirth? And why is it so hard to find enough food to eat? If you haven't read Genesis 3 in a while, I'd invite you to pause the video and go read it through for yourself. That will give the rest of this presentation better context. So here's my presentation of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I'm sorry that it's a dead tree, but something bare worked better for these purposes. And here are the main characters of our story: a snake or serpent, 2 humans, and the infamous forbidden fruit. Notice it is not an apple. I chose a pomegranate, since that makes geographical and agricultural sense. And now, for some of the ways that people read into this story. Most well known, of course, is the belief that this story is about original sin. Perhaps second in terms of popularity is the connection people have made between this misinformed idea of original sin and sex. Sex is the way this state of original sin is handed down from one generation to the next. This association of sex with sinfulness then has led to people believing that sex itself is sinful. Next up is the belief that billions of people have held that humans were actually initially perfect at one point in the existence of Homo sapiens. But thanks to Eve, we are no longer. This next belief comes from reading Genesis 2 and 3 through a literal lens, instead of through the understanding that they are myths. This belief says that when, in Genesis 2, God told the first human not to eat of the fruit of this one tree, God was actively testing humans. And then, when they chose to eat of it anyway, God got wickedly angry at them for it and delivered the punishments as listed in Genesis 3:16 and following. Several of these beliefs then blend together to create the necessity of having a savior who was conceived without sexual intercourse, among other things. What is rarely heard but is taught by some scholars, pastors, and rabbis is the simpler take on it all, which is this story is simply trying to offer a backstory, a mythic explanation for why humans have a conscience in contrast to other animals, why childbirth is so stinking painful. Can't you just hear a small child asking her mother why the women in the birthing tent always scream so much? And why humans are struggling so much to find enough food. One of my favorite parts about this story is the way select elements of it continue to show up in our current culture, however not true to the story they may be. Red apples, women dressed scantily, and sexual innuendos abound in advertising or brands. Or even when you think about things like applesauce being sold with some reference to Eden. It's not in there. I'm sure there are some other popular interpretations of this story that I was not thinking of as I put this presentation together, thus my other pomegranate. But at the end of the day, only 2 of the ideas or beliefs that I've outlined here are actually supported by the text. The others are based on reading into the story, and this is built up over the centuries. The more popular of the 2, based in the text, is quite far-reaching, to be sure, but, may I remind you, is based on misunderstanding the genre that Genesis 3 is, a myth.